Hey folks, I assume if you're watching my channel, that means you're already a big Bluegrass fan. That means you know who this guy is.
Blue railroad train, going down the railroad track. Makes me feel so doggone blue to listen to that old smokestack.
One of the really cool signature Tony Rice things that everyone tries to copy is his free improvisations. There's no backing musicians, there's no real-time signature, just unfiltered Tony. The most famous example of this is probably his intro to Freeborn Man.
Well, I was born down in the Southland.
Every bluegrass guitarist ever has at least tried to do this. Of course, I would never do this at any of my shows, right?
Well, I was born way down in Scotland.
Okay, so I've done it too. However, that's mostly just everyone's favorite G-licks ad nauseum, and we're not doing that today. But if you want to check out my advanced G-licks video, you can do that. Really, I would appreciate that. Instead, we're going to do that same thing, but in A minor, which is something that Tony also really kills at, but is just less talked about. In fact, you've probably already heard this sound in that really cool, but kind of weird Tony Rice tribute video. You know the one I'm talking about? Anyway, this video should culminate with you having all the skills necessary to play the passage from the beginning of this video. Side note, I have a really big library of tabs that I've just, things that I've arranged or I've transcribed from YouTube videos and bootlegs and recordings, and I didn't write down the source for the snippet that I'm working on. So if you know if it's from a specific live version of something or something like that, please let me know in the comments below. All right, I want you to go way, way back with me. We're talking circa sophomore year of high school. Do you remember that? Someone probably taught you your first pentatonic scale, and it was probably this bad boy. Pentatonic boxes are where Tony spends most of his time when he's doing this kind of improv. So we need to make sure that we're up on boxes 4, 5, and 1 at the very least. So here's a quick recap. On to the next step. Sequencing is when you take a specific pattern and you apply it to a scale. That happens 2 different ways in this passage. So let's break down both of them. So the sequence here is that we play 3 scale tones descending, and then we play those 3 scale tones again, and then we start the pattern 1 scale tone lower. Now I'm going to play it for you, and I'm going to highlight each step of the sequence as I pass through them. Also, you can do this throughout the entire position. I just ended it a little bit early because I didn't want to take up your time. The second sequence is a little bit more involved. It's an ascending sequence, but every step of the sequence, we actually descend 3 strings. So we're going to play a scale tone on our first string, then we're going to do a pull-off on the string below that, then we're going to play a single scale tone on the string below that. Confused? Good. Here's that sequence with each step of the sequence highlighted. Now, there's tons of sequences in the world, and you can make up even more on your own, but those are the only 2 that appear in this passage. So let's move on. So Tony Rice uses a lot of chord shapes when he does these little solo guitar interludes. This particular passage starts and ends with 2 different variations of an A minor chord. Now, the first one, I guess you could call it A minor 7 sus2, but you don't have to do that. To me, it's just a variation of a closed A minor 7 chord, but with some substituted open strings instead. The A minor chord that I used at the end, I like to call the tenacious D chord, because I believe it's the chord that they used to end their song Tribute. Fun fact, one time I opened for Kyle Gass from Tenacious D. This is basically an A minor 9 chord, but you can think of it the same way. It's an A minor chord with some open strings thrown in. Don't get caught up in the numbers. The other way that Tony uses chords when he's doing this kind of stuff is actually how a fiddle player would use double stops. You can hear him doing this normally in his rhythm for Wayfaring Stranger. So all of these chord shapes are triads that we'd expect in the key of A minor, more or less. The first shape is part of a C or A minor 7 chord. The second shape is a D major chord, which will give you that Dorian kind of sound, but let's not get into that right now. And the last shape is part of an E minor chord. Now the way Tony uses these is basically by pedaling that low A string, and what I mean by pedaling is he's keeping that bass note the same while all of the chords above change. So here's those 3 chords the way Tony uses them. Now Tony has no problem moving between pentatonic shapes, and he does it in 2 different ways in this passage. The first way is very common, slides. He uses this method to get from box 5 to box 1 multiple times, and it's easy. Basically, you descend 2 strings in box 5, slide, and then ascend those same 2 strings in the next position up. The second way is with an escape note. If you want to learn more about escape notes in a major context, you can check out one of my most popular and oldest videos, Descending the Neck. To sum it up quickly, you basically descend a scale up the neck, and when you get to an appropriate place, you can use an open string to escape and move your hand back down to a lower position. In this case, to sound like Tony, we want to use our A minor pentatonic box 1 to descend, and our open A string to escape. Now the example doesn't look like a whole lot, doesn't seem like a lot of content, but when you use it in context and there's licks and improvising around it, you'll really see how effective it is. This one's a short one. So I've done a lot of talking about blue notes in the past, but this is what a lot of people specifically call the blue note. And what it is adding a flatted 5th degree to a minor pentatonic. For us, the 5th degree in the key of A minor would be an E note. So our flatted 5th degree would be an E flat note. Tony likes to grab that on 4th fret of his B string. He uses it to start a lot of phrases in box 5. I'm going to give you an example and you'll immediately recognize the sound, I promise. So here's the full passage from the beginning with tab. I want you to try very hard to catch all of the things we talked about while you watch this video back. Did you catch all of them? So here's a play-by-play of what's happening through every step of the process. Alright, so if you liked that video, I would love it if you would please scroll down and hit that subscribe button. You can also like this video. You can leave a comment down below if I did anything right or if I did anything wrong. If you're looking for more of me, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter. There also is a daily lick channel on Instagram that I run with a buddy of mine. It's called Jazz and Grass. There's going to be some more Jazz and Grass updates coming up soon, so that's going to be super fun. You can also check out my website, lessonswithmarcel.com. Bunch of free stuff on there, and there is a tab store you can visit. But I guess until then, I'll see you next time.